This is the second time I've done a video about the closing of Jagged Little Pill. If anybody has been following this channel for a bit, you know. The third video that I did was like right after they had shuttered the show on Broadway.
Then today they announced that December 17th was the last performance of Jagged Little Pill on Broadway.
And I was just feeling so lost, so sad about the abrupt closure of this show and the way that it had taken Joe and Bella's story and Nick, like all of these characters who are so human and so relatable and authentic and raw in a way that a lot of media just isn't allowing people to be, these kind of messy characters who find healing together at the end. Like that was such a universal story, and I hated to think that it was just done. You know, it felt very anticlimactic to have that be like the end of Jagged Little Pill without the fans, the company, anybody involved with it being able to actually say goodbye, which is then why I did the fourth video, which was being able to attend the reunion show and get to see this company, you know, give the show the closure that they needed it to have. To get to have that experience and see this music performed in the way that this cast connects to it was incredible. And what's interesting is now that the show has gotten to stretch its legs a little bit on this tour and reach more people, and Jade themselves has been like so open with their journey of bringing this character to other audiences, that it's really continued this conversation around representation for this kind of character. In the couple of years that this has been going on, I've also been feeling more and more compelled to write my own Joe stories in the same way that I felt compelled to record the first video on this channel, because it felt like there was a part of the conversation that was getting missed. And I was like, oh, I think I have to create the video that has that conversation in it. I'm also feeling like I'm probably one of the few people who could write something authentic, something that speaks to the reality that Joes all over the world experience. Given the lack of representation for this kind of character and knowing the kind of controversy Jagged Little Pill went through when trying to open that conversation, there's pressure that it has to be like this exactly perfect thing. But in getting to see a lot of different TV shows, movies, other theater take this on, it's less about it being just this one perfect thing. It's more about being open to all the nuances and the variety that can exist in even a specific story about what this experience is like. I think I'm finding myself more encouraged and emboldened by that, and it's making me want to write. It's making me want to help continue to widen that conversation and create more stories for that to exist in the world, for there to be more Joes out there for people to see. Yeah. Everything that I've been able to achieve on a personal level, on a professional level, has come from the confidence boost that I got from seeing myself in this character of Joe and Jagged Little Pill. So I have Jagged to thank for everything, which is why I do all these videos. I wish that more people were able to receive the amount of validation that I've received just from this one thing. And that's why I feel that responsibility as a writer myself. I feel like Jagged was the first time that I really saw the power that art has to make people feel seen. I think it was something that was in the ether as a creative myself, who's enjoyed movies and TV shows and theater for a long time and seen, how important representation is on an abstract level. But when you get to experience that, when you see a character who is you, it does something. It does something totally different to your body, to your heart. And it is the most telling sign of, okay, this is the path that I've chosen. What am I going to do with this new information? So I am setting the intention right now on the internet that I will no longer gatekeep my Joe stories. I need to just dive into the lava, as Megalophobe would say, It's a screenwriting reference for any nerds out there. Dive into the lava, the scary stuff, the stuff that feels like no one's going to care about this, no one knows this part of me. Jagged Little Pill has shown me that's not true, that there's a lot of Joes out there looking for that representation, needing to see that on screen, needing to see these human, funny characters living. I recommend biting off more than you can chew to anyone. I certainly do. And I recommend sticking your foot in your mouth at any time. Feel free. I was very newly out when I began this whole content creation adventure, and I was incredibly nervous about being so vocally queer and open with my own messy journey with all of that. But there's no space for that right now. We need queer stories, and we need queer stories of joy. There is so much focus on trauma and the struggle to be queer, to be on a gender journey. There is a void in our industry for the stories about just queer, trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming, gender fluid superstars just living their lives. And I want to create those stories. I want to create stories of queer joy and gender euphoria, because that is just as, if not even more important than showing the darker sides that exist. There is something empowering about seeing someone overcome the struggle to belong within their community, whether that's, a trans or non-binary person coming into their trans or non-binary identity in a very heteronormative world and getting a lot of pushback for that, or even bullying or violence. And if anybody out there has not heard the song The Village, I cannot more highly recommend this song. I had never heard it until last year, and I feel like that's the case with so much queer media. There's so much out there to be had, but you have to kind of seek it out. It's not as mainstream. Please go look up that video. I won't talk about it more, but that is one of my favorite pieces of media that speaks to the struggle of coming into your trans identity. But yeah, so we do need stories like that. We need stories that speak to that part of the experience, for sure. Or even the more nuanced experience of being a gender nonconforming person, trying to find your space in that community. It's definitely something that I have experienced being at this part of my journey where I'm still figuring things out, and I haven't necessarily landed on labels and pronouns that feel like they're exactly who I am. It's a part of the journey I've kept more to myself and to very trusted loved ones. But that's not, there's so much focus on the struggle of that when there are a lot of people out there who are trans or non-binary, and it's a very joyful experience. Until you have experienced gender euphoria, you just can't fully know how amazing that feels to finally feel comfortable in your own skin. There's not enough emphasis on that. There's not enough stories about that moment where you look in the mirror for the first time and you see you. It's one of the reasons that I really loved the sequence in When Men Were Men, where Kieran is trying on a bunch of different outfits and trying to figure out what his look is gonna be. I think there's not enough emphasis on that kind of makeover sequence. That's kind of a cliche sequence in a lot of comedies, a lot of rom-coms. Capturing that moment where you get to see yourself for the first time in such a real way. We need more of those. We need more of those in media so that the Joes can see themselves on screen and see that is accessible to them, but also so that just like everybody else can see how amazing of a moment that is, how important it is to give people the space to be able to find themselves. The importance of allowing children and teenagers to have these kinds of conversations about who they are, the identity that they're coming into. I'm not going to get political on here any more than I already have, but it's just so important. important. It's so important to allow kids to express themselves and figure out who they are and do it in a way that provides a safe space for that kind of exploration.
I'm broke, but I'm happy. I'm poor, but I'm kind. I'm short, but I'm healthy.